I heard Sai Ganesh at the interlude between the fire ceremony and this service talking about the last 3 days. For those of you who watch the ever-expanding altars, we've had three altars in 3 days, or this is the 4th day, because there is a confluence every year between the day that Yogananda, the anniversary of the day that Yogananda left his body, and the anniversary of the day that his guru, Sri Yukteswar, left his body. Yogananda passed on March 7th, 1952, Sri Yukteswar in 1936 on March 9th, which was yesterday. And then this year, Shiva Ratri, which does not go by the same Western calendar, came on Friday. So it was a triple header for those who were interested in these things, and always just a great joy for all of us. When I used to live at Ananda Village the first 10 years of Ananda's existence, and my first 10 years here, we lived a very isolated life. Ananda Village is still somewhat isolated, but because of all the technological advances, there's no such thing as isolation, unless you were in one of those rare spots with this dreaded phrase, no reception, right? But if you have reception, then all the world is the same. But then we were very obscure and very separated, and joyously so, just turning our back on a world that didn't interest us. But we got the mail. Every day the mail came to one spot. And so I was always surprised when the mail was delivered on January 5th, Yogananda's birthday, May 7th, his Mahasamadhi, May 19th, Swami's birthday. I would think, why is the government working this day? This is a holiday. And it was wonderful because that was the world we lived in which we celebrated very different things. You know, the Indian tradition in India still is the quote, festival season. There's always one thing or another happening. And it's all about, well, when Lord Rama was defeated by the goddess Durga on this occasion, and then the day when Rama came back to Ayodhya after his battles, and when this happened to Krishna. And people just grow up with, that's the way the world is. You know, we're not in the West as oriented that way. But nonetheless, we still have these times when we either honor individuals whose greatness inspires us, or more profoundly, when we are working to change our own consciousness and want to give, and need all the help we can get is really what it amounts to. There comes to a certain point where you realize this is beyond, literally beyond the me that I call me, and we need help. It's just really simple. I need help. Swami Kriyananda describes that in his autobiography, talking about coming to the point where he was ready to be a disciple. And the first words he spoke to Yogananda virtually were, I want to be your disciple. He was a 22-year-old American man, meeting this Indian guru in 1948, when this was not nearly so common as it is now. And even as the words came out of his mouth, even though they rose irresistibly from his heart, it was, isn't this remarkable that this is what I've come to? That I've recognized my own limitations and the greatness of someone else. So when we celebrate Sri Yukteswar Master's Mahasamadhi, means the final merging into the infinite. The Maha is great. Samadhi is having oneness with cosmic consciousness. Great souls whose consciousness is completely freed from the limitations of separate identity and limited consciousness. They enter into that state at will. There's this remarkable video that we acquired from the BBC in Canada, like maybe 20 years ago, probably literally 20 years ago. And it was the first little bit of film of Yogananda, which was widely available. And he's giving an interview. And he says, you know, now I will go into super consciousness. And then right in front of you, his eyes sort of roll back and he goes into super consciousness, just as casually as someone else would say, now I'll have a cup of coffee. You know, just that complete freedom like this. And it's remarkable to hear about, or if you're fortunate enough to meet great souls, great saints. Swami Kriyananda was the first living example of the fulfillment of the promise of spiritual life. But I actually met one other saintly man prior to that. At that time, I was devoted to Ramakrishna, an avatar of the 1800s, and they have temples, the Vedanta Society temples around the United States, and I was in Southern California, and I used to go up to the Hollywood Hills to their temple there. This was in the 2 years before I met Swami. And some Swami came from India there. I was a very intellectual sort of person. And this Swami came in, he gave a talk of some sort that I remember, but I remember afterwards shaking his hand, and in his aura and in his eyes, he was somewhere else. You know, it wasn't the impact that Kriyananda had on me, but it was still like, there is an entirely different potential for human consciousness than I had ever imagined. I was about up to my knees in the spiritual teaching at that point. I was about knee deep in it. Later I went, underwater, but at that point. So I knew it was possible. But there's a vibration that comes through. Now, what we're dealing with, this is what Jesus is talking about, by their fruits you can know them. And he puts this warning in, don't be fooled, which more people are more interested in being fooled, in not being fooled than they are in actually receiving. We get all confused on this. But once you begin to understand, for whatever reason, either because of contact that you have or the samskars. Samskars are impressions from past lives on your consciousness. The samskars just finally get your attention. What are you doing with your life? Where is your happiness coming from? Do you really just want to go one more round of birth and death? And then after it's over, you're just essentially the same. You've just worn a different body and played a different game, but just really gone nowhere? Or do we see that there is real potential to transform? And transform not just for the sake of change, not just, well, this time I'll be an artist and last time I was an engineer, but transform in the very essence of who I am and what moves me in this world. How do I behave? How do I relate? What is reality? And we don't have to be afraid of this. We just have to use what Swami said is our common sense. And most of the time when we're not using our common sense, it's because somebody's promised us they're going to give us the same result with less effort. Isn't that what we really like the most? Yeah, let's just isn't there an easier way? I've joked a lot of times, but I will repeat it now. There was a wonderful friend of mine. He was always fine in my classes. I really enjoyed having him there. He moved to another community, so I lost his company, unfortunately. And he would ask very interesting questions and always very sincere. But after a while, I saw that there was one united theme to every question, which is, I'm sure you have a secret to tell me how this is easier. Why don't you tell me now? And yes, this is fascinating, all of this and this and this, but isn't there an easier way? Isn't there a shortcut? And we spend a great deal of our time looking for that shortcut, don't we? Well, it didn't really work out, when I was born in this country, so I'll be born in that one next time. I didn't have enough money. This time I'm going to concentrate on money. I saw a picture of a starlet. I guess, is that the word? Do they still use that? Some actress somewhere. It was just a photograph. For some reason, it struck me. It was a female, she was so attractive in the way that movie stars would want to be attractive. She had just the right face, just the right body, just the right va-va-voom, whatever it is that you would put out like that. And I thought, my God, how many incarnations has she been working on that? First she got the nose right, then she got the hair right, Then she kept, I'm sure she was scanning all the potential parents, and found, bingo, just the right one. She got to be there. And how did that work out for you, honey? At the end, especially when, oh my God, you got old, and all that stuff that works so well at the beginning kind of disintegrates. You know how it is. How does that work out for you? What are we really looking for? And is it possible? Is it possible? That hope is always there. My name, Asha, means hope. I was so happy when Swami gave it to me. When we used to ask Swami Kriyananda for names, there was always the nervousness. You were most afraid of getting a name like Tapasya. Tapasya means austerity, discipline. You wanted a name more like bliss or effortless bliss. That would be even better. That would be the name that you'd want. I don't know if this is actually a name, but I think in some ashram somewhere we met someone who was called Rupamana Haridasi. Probably Rupamana Haridasi Lieberman or something like that, It was such a chaotic time. Anyway, so you'd ask Swami for a name, but you'd cross your fingers. But yours would be easy. So when I got Asha, four letters, simple. The meaning is 4 letters, hope, bip, like that. But it's been very interesting to live with it all these years. I mean, it's such an easy name to use. It's my legal name. I changed it early and all that. But hope, isn't that an interesting concept? I mean, really deeply. And it's come to me in such a profound way what it means. It means I never give up. And it's a much gentler I never give up than some other kinds of I never give up. The bleeding feet across crags of suffering kind of never giving up. Hope is just at the heart when everything else stops, you still know. Hope is a form of faith, isn't it? Whether we actually know it or not, if we have hope, that means that some part of us knows that there's another reality. And I've often contemplated, and I repeat it again because it's worth repeating, if we knew that we were meant for suffering, we would just suffer. But we know that we were not. And my friend, too, who's always asking me about shortcuts, sometimes he listens to my talks, so he knows he'll be enjoying my saying this. But even that, why am I struggling so much? This is my true nature. Can you help me understand how just to be what I know I'm meant to be? I received an email from someone asking me to talk about surrender. It's not actually something that I think about all the time, but the wonderful thing about being in contact with other people is they raise questions. So I really, all morning, I've just been thinking about what does it mean to surrender? Swami actually used that word, but sometimes he would also speak against it. He said, the problem with surrender is it sounds like it's being forced upon you. You don't surrender until you fought as hard as you can. You've been backed into a corner. Your sword has been taken away from you. You're outnumbered. All right. But it doesn't sound victorious. It sounds like the opposite of victory, doesn't it? Surrender is what's happened when you can't win. And that's part of where we get very confused. So sometimes Swamiji has said, surrender is not it's not forced upon you. It's the decision that I'm going to offer myself. I'm going to step out of my tiny little self-contained, self-determined, I know the right way, and I'm going to step into the great river of consciousness. I'm going to trust that God has a plan for me. I'm going to use the collective of all my experiences. And I'm not going to resist anymore. It's this the maintenance of the ego is actually really hard work and exhausting. That's what's really difficult, is to hold ourselves in this tiny little spot and with all of our self-definitions that tell us I can't, I won't, I'm not able to, I don't want to, what will happen to me if? And the thing about all of that is, it's very, very simple. It doesn't work. It doesn't bring us what we want, what we really want. What we want is freedom. When I look back at my life, even to my earliest memories as a child, I didn't have the vocabulary of Sanatana Dharma, of the teachings I learned from Master and from Swamiji and all of that. But I always wanted the same thing. It's just the form of it shifted around as I got more sophisticated. Even today, now, after all these years, you hear the same words, but your consciousness changes. And then those words are different to you. That's what our scripture reading was saying to us today. It's not the words in the scripture that really are the teaching. It's the vibration and the consciousness behind it. And the way this creation is set up, and I wasn't in charge, I didn't do it, but this is the way it is. We all stumble around out here trying to figure out what to do, and every so often one of these great masters just wanders through. And if we are sufficiently desperate, then we are brought in contact with their consciousness. And we begin to understand that it's being in contact with their consciousness that really changes us. And all of our own spiritual efforts, our sadhana, our kriya, our self-discipline, our everything that we do, even if our name isn't Ananda, nonetheless, we still have to constantly, and this is where the word surrender really comes in. It's not some sort of big dramatic, all of a sudden, although that happens too. I surrender, You throw yourself in front of your altar and just try to receive what God is giving you. But it's what is important to me? What runs my life? Am I just going to say, but I want it to be different, but I want it to be different, but I want it to be different? Excuse me, is anybody listening? I want it to be different. I want it to go faster. Isn't there a shortcut? Do I really have to run the opposite of all the things I did wrong? I wandered way off center, and now it's a long hike back. It was more fun going out. It's harder coming back. Do I really have to do that? The answer is, yeah. And so it's not like our attunement balances everything in a heartbeat or anything like that, but it gives us a point of reference. The many words that I can use to describe what Swami Kriyananda has been to me, pole star is the one that I like the best. The unchanging point of reference by which everything else can be measured. And there's simply no way to conjure that out of the soup of my own egoic confusion. It has to shine in the sky in front of you, and then you can always tell. And every time we have the opportunity, as we've had in these few days, to feel those vibrations coming in, just to be reminded. Forgetting is the big problem. It seemed like a good idea at the time, but it wasn't, because I forgot. I just forgot. So we have to constantly bring ourselves back to that vibration that the masters put out. And they sail through the planet, not as often as we go through, but they sail through the planet with leaving clouds of glory behind them. And they remain, even when their bodies are gone, as just this emanating beacon of power that is always there for us, always there for us. That's what we discover. And what we surrender is our stupidity. That's really all we surrender. I remember Swami, he's used this word several times. Once he was sort of saying, why did you do that? He said, because I'm stupid. That was his answer. He actually wrote it in a pamphlet. I said, sir, you are many things, but stupid just doesn't work for you. It just doesn't work. But I understand why he said it. Because in retrospect, you think, why? Why would I resist? Why would I want anything but God realization? Why would I think that I can actually have security from anything else? That anything else has more power to protect me and give me joy than my attunement with God? Oh, I know why, because I'm stupid, right? But we don't have to stay that way. We really don't. We suffer as long as we want to. Oh, it's a hard story, though. I don't want to make it trivial. It is not small. I don't know why, but it is not small. It's just an every day. You know, how can I make this day pleasing to God? How can I make this day a contributing partner in my quest for perfect happiness? Because there is hope. There is hope because we cannot escape. And we cannot, even when we try. We have, no matter how much momentum we have in the wrong direction. There's this wonderful book whose name I can't remember anymore, but it was a book about people. It wasn't death experiences, it was pre-death experiences. I talked about it from this dais a few weeks ago. One of the stories was a prisoner who was in prison for murder and then was released to be into this hospice program with this man. And he had been in a prison for almost his entire life for having killed people. And he's about to die, and he's going to, he was very Jesus-oriented, he's going to face the Savior. And the story is how he realized that nothing can separate us from the love of God. Nothing. It's really something to contemplate, isn't it? Because it's not, we think that our freedom is going to come when we stop being stupid. Good luck. We have karma we have to work out. We're off balance. We have energies that we've sent out that we don't even remember. They come like a boomerang and knock us in the head and cause us to do really dumb things. So it isn't a question that we're going to just get it organized and stop making mistakes. That's just not likely to happen. But we are going to surrender our concern about anything except the fact that God loves us. We're going to make that relationship. We're going to feel the Master, Sri Yukteswar, Yogananda, Babaji, Jesus, Ramakrishna, whoever you love. Doesn't make any difference who you love. The only thing that matters is that you love. And that you make that love not just something that is nice to hear other people talk about, but is actually the beating heart of our own consciousness. And there's no shortcut, my friends. But it's not complicated. It's not easy, but it's very simple. Big difference, keep that clear. Okay, so today hasn't been the best day, Lord. I just give it back to you. And in the morning, we'll get up and we'll try again, won't we? And then we'll do our best, and whatever that is, well, if I could have done better, I would have done better. So this was my day. And then there's just always this, irrepressible joy. That's what we're really looking for. That's what the Masters shower upon us. Wonderful, isn't it?
I come to the garden alone, while the dew is still on the roses, and the voice I hear falling on my ear, the Son of God discloses. talks with me, and he tells me I am his own. And the joy we share as we tarry there, none other has ever known. He speaks, and the sound of his voice is so sweet, the birds hush their singing, and the melody that he gave to me within my heart is ringing. And he walks with me, and he talks with me, and he tells me I am his own. And the joy we share as we tarry there, none other has ever known, none other has ever known. I've known them forever, they've haunted my slumber and called to me out of the deeps of space. The love that they promise has helped me remember another time, a caring embrace. Dark eyes in the morning, dark eyes in the evening, dark eyes in the starlight at end of day. Dark eyes that speak silence, they whisper, come find me. You'll never know true love if you stay. Now I seek them in the winter time, oh, I seek them in the spring. Those two dark eyes draw my heart away to where sun and moon sing. I laugh now in the summertime when ripples on the river play. I laugh soaring with the meadowlarks, love has made my heart gay. I laugh soaring with the meadowlarks, love has made my heart gay. I've known them forever, they've haunted my slumber and called to me out of the deeps of space. The love that they promise has helped me remember another time, a caring embrace. Dark eyes in the morning, dark eyes in the evening, dark eyes in the starlight at end of day. Dark eyes that speak silence, they whisper, come find me. You'll never know true love if you stay. Now I seek them in the winter time, oh, I seek them in the spring. Those two dark eyes draw my heart away to where sun and moon sing. I laugh now in the summertime when ripples on the river play. I laugh soaring with the meadowlarks, love has made my heart gay. meadowlarks, love has made my